Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. And tonight's Dynamite was from the Braun Center in Huntsville, Alabama. And I gotta say, tonight's Dynamite, though it was a decent show, wasn't a great or perfect show by any means, but it was a decent show. And tonight, we saw Jon Moxley versus Ortiz, SCU versus Best Friends. We also saw the debut of Yuka Sakazaki, who is the new member for the AEW Women's Division. She ended up taking on Britt Baker. We saw a 8-man tag team match between the Blade, the Butcher, and the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr., and Phoenix versus Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, and the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. And we also saw Kip Sabian versus Joey Janela. And we saw a very brutal main event where CODY ended up having to take like 10 lashes from MJF. So get to explaining all those. But let's get on with the Dynamite review. So Dynamite opened up with the first match of the night, and it was Jon Moxley versus Ortiz. And this was a decent match between both Moxley and Ortiz. And this was Ortiz's first singles match in AEW. And before the match got underway, Jericho came out, of course, along with Jake Hager and Sammy Guevara. Santana was out there on the floor. And we had Santana trying to distract Jon Moxley. Moxley ended up dropping Ortiz with a clothesline. The distraction by Santana didn't do anything for Moxley. So Moxley grabs a chair. They were both on the outside on the floor. So Moxley ends up grabbing a chair, chases Ortiz back into the ring. Moxley ends up catching Ortiz's kick, throws Ortiz into the canvas. Santana ended up getting involved, tripping up Jon Moxley, and Ortiz then took control, dropped Moxley, ended up hitting a run and dive to Moxley. Moxley ended up kicking out of that. So Ortiz ended up tossing Moxley to the floor, sends Moxley into the barricade, and then he launched Moxley into the ring steps. And towards the end of the match, Moxley was in control. He ended up hitting the paradigm shift on Ortiz to score the win. So Moxley ends up winning the match. And post-match, what happened? Moxley ends up staring over at Jericho, who of course was on commentary. And Santana attacks Moxley from behind. Moxley then, takes the control, ends up hitting the paradigm shift to Santana. Then we see Moxley retrieves, Jericho's Ford GT key. Moxley ends up looking at Jericho and says, "Eye for an eye." So Moxley then jabs Santana's eye with the Ford GT key. And Hager and Guevara end up getting into the ring. Moxley retreated out of there, went through the crowd, started taunting Jericho a bit. And we see the medical medical personnel ends up checking on Santana. And that's basically how what happened post match. But really crazy seeing Moxley, jab Santana's eye with the Ford GT key. But Moxley, got his revenge. Only it wasn't Jericho. Remember a few weeks ago, Jericho ended up taking the spike from his jacket, jabbing it into Moxley's eye, and that's why Moxley is wearing the eye patch. So that's to say Moxley is going to get his revenge on others of the Inner Circle. He went through, he did it to Santana. Possibly, he might jab the key into Ortiz, Guevara, and Hager. So that's my prediction. I could definitely, possibly see that happening if they were to go that route. But who knows? That's my prediction. But we're loving how this feud is progressing with Jericho and Moxley. Sorry about that, but I was saying I'm really loving how this feud is progressing with Jericho and Moxley. And we are a few weeks away from Revolution. My prediction, said it, like last week or a few weeks ago. Moxley is taking the AEW World Championship from Jericho. So that's my prediction, though. But overall, decent match between Moxley and Ortiz. Then we had the second match. It was the Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent, versus SCU, Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. Of course, Orange Cassidy came out, of course, with Chuck Taylor and Trent. And this was a good match between the Best Friends and SCU. We had Kazarian and Trent start the match. They were trading chops. Kazarian ends up punching Trent right in the face. Trent ends up dropping Kazarian with double knees. Tags in Chuck Taylor. Chuck Taylor does a elbow drop. They do a double elbow drop. And Kazarian is able to get back up, tagging Scorpio Sky. Chuck Taylor ends up hitting a side headlock. And we had Chuck Taylor end up going to the second rope, and he does a moonsault and lands on his feet, which that moonsault that he hit was, really awesome. And a point where all four guys, go after each other. They end up on the floor, and Orange Cassidy, he sees, Chuck Taylor and Trent lying down, and Orange Cassidy just standing there, and then he, goes on the floor, just lays there, which was hilarious. But the end of the match, you had Kazarian end up hitting a Yoshitonic on Trent for the pin. So SCU ends up winning the match. But all in all, it was a good match between SCU and Best Friends. Post-match, you had the Dark Order come out. They attack both SCU and the Best Friends. Evil Uno ends up making his way to the ring slowly. And his group ends up sending the other teams, SCU and Best Friends, to the floor. The Dark Order line up, and Orange Cassidy gets into the ring. Evil Uno offers Orange Cassidy a mask. And Orange Cassidy ends up passing on the offer. And so because of that, Dark Order ends up attacking him. Christopher Daniels ends up running in, and he tells the Dark Order guys, the minions, to fight him. And the Dark Order end up sliding out of the ring. Evil Uno talks in Stu Grayson's ear. Christopher Daniels was still yelling at the Dark Order. And the Dark Order then, get out of the ring. And so basically that was that. Then we had Taz ends up talking, about, CODY taking, the 10 lashes from MJF, which, CODY ends up taking the 10 lashes from MJF. I'll get to explain that, later on, because that was the main event. So Taz ends up saying that it's going to be tough to watch, which, was, tough to watch. And he says it feels like MJF is taking things a bit too far. And Taz ends up saying it also validates how badly CODY wants to get his hands on MJF at Revolution. So, more, add to this good feud between CODY and MJF. So then we had Britt Baker versus the debut of Yuka Sakazaki. So Yuka Sakazaki is new superstar in the AEW Women's Division. And this match, it was very meh, in my opinion. And both Britt Baker and Yuka end up trading in wrist locks on each other. Baker ends up beating up Yuka in the corner. Hammers Yuka with the big boot. Went for the cover. Yuka ended up kicking out of that. Yuka came back, ended up delivering a Hurricanrana to Britt Baker. She ended up going up to the top rope, ended up hitting a seated senton. Baker ended up heading out to the floor. And Sakazaki ended up following that with a splash off the top rope to Britt Baker. Crowd was chanting Yuka. And she ends up hitting a sliding clothesline into the ring on Britt Baker. Went for a pin, got a 2 count. Sorry about that again, keep getting interrupted. But I said, Sakazaki ended up delivering a sliding clothesline in the ring to Britt Baker. Went for the pin. She got a 2 count because Britt Baker ended up kicking out. And Britt Baker ends up going into the lockjaw. And she ends up pulling Sakazaki's hair. Sakazaki ends up breaking the lockjaw. And Sakazaki got the win with a crucifix pin. There you go. Yuka Sakazaki ended up defeating Britt Baker. So, she debuts and it's her first win. So that's pretty cool. Post-match, you had Britt Baker ends up getting out of the ring, gets the ring bell, gets back in the ring, ends up whacking Sakazaki with the ring bell, over the back, over Sakazaki's back. So Baker ends up going to swing the ring bell again at Sakazaki. And the referee, Aubrey Edwards, ends up taking the bell away. Baker then ends up putting Sakazaki's mouth around the bottom rope. And she ends up stomping Sakazaki's head down on it. And then we just see blood is coming out of Yuka Sakazaki's mouth. And it reveals that Britt Baker broke one of Yuka's teeth. And we see the tooth, just lying there, on the canvas. And, Sakazaki's, screaming in pain. And Baker ends up putting in the lockjaw on Yuka once again. And pretty much that was basically, what happened the post-match, though. But really crazy, seeing Baker break one of Sakazaki's, teeth. It was just one tooth that Baker ended up breaking. I find it pretty funny because, Britt Baker, outside from the ring, she is a dentist. Oh, very meh match. But happy that Sakazaki got a win on, her debut. And then we had the 8-man tag team match. Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, the AEW tag team champions, and the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, versus the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix, and the Butcher and the Blade. Of course, Allie, aka the Bunny, came out with them. And this was a very fun 8-man tag team match. Really enjoyed this match. Very back and forth match. Quick, fast pace. You had Hangman Page, comes out, first. And he goes into the ring. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, had their entrance where, they play, Be the Elite. Be in the Elite, which I really enjoy that theme. And we had, quick start to the match where Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, and Young Bucks, they got, quick tags in. They beat up on, the Blade. Young Bucks end up delivering a bunch of drop kicks. And they end up hitting a triple drop kick, along with Kenny Omega on the Butcher. And Kenny Omega and Matt and Nick end up doing, triple splashes, over the top rope. And we then see the Elite. They get sent out to the floor. Phoenix ends up hitting a huge springboard senton on all four guys out there. Kenny Omega, Hangman, and Matt and Nick Jackson. And towards, the later part of the match, that's when, everything starts spilling out and, being crazy, back and forth. And at the end of the match, we had Pentagon, getting the cover on Hangman Adam Page. And, because, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, they wanted a tag. Hangman ended up passing. He ends up turning around and eats a sling blade. Phoenix ends up clearing out Matt and Nick Jackson. That's when Pentagon took control. End up covering Hangman Adam Page for the win. So there you go. The Blade, the Butcher, and Lucha Brothers win the match. All in all, very fun 8-man tag. Really enjoyed the hell out of it. Just good match. So you saw post-match, Matt and Nick, they were arguing with Hangman Adam Page. Kenny Omega looked like he was trying to play, the peacemaker, and Hangman Page, got out of the ring. He was looking for a beer, and he heads through the crowd. So we saw that. Then Tony Schiavone comes into the ring, and he's with Kenny Omega, interviewing him. And we cut to the back, and we see Pac standing with Lexi Neer and Rio, the AEW women's world champion. And Pac ends up telling Lexi to get out. And then he ends up threatening Riho. And Pac is just asking Kenny Omega for his match. Kenny Omega ends up telling Pac that he's got his match. And Pac ends up saying that he wouldn't ever put his hands on a woman. He ended up saying that he may be a bastard, but he's not a beast. So Nyla Rose ends up charging, powerbombs Riho through a table. And Nyla ends up telling Riho next week she's coming after her. And the commentary ends up saying that, Nyla Rose versus Riho, the title is going to be on the line. So that's something to look forward to, next week. Even though I think it'll possibly be an okay match, or a very meh match, because we all know with AEW's women's division, it's not the greatest. Needs work. Then we got a Darby Allin promo. We saw, flashbacks to Darby Allin again thrown down on his skateboard. Darby Allin, was shown outside, and we see a cardboard, cutout of, that Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara hugging, which that was funny to see. So Darby Allin ends up having a flamethrower, and he throws, the flamethrower, burns the cutout of Jericho and Guevara. But really cool promo from Darby Allin. Then we had Kip Sabian versus Joey Janela. Of course, Kip Sabian was out there, of course, with Penelope Ford. The match itself, it was, okay. Wasn't great or perfect by any means, though. But we had Kip Sabian and Janela, brawling with each other when the match got underway. Kip Sabian had the advantage of the match, but Janela ended up getting a pinfall. Sabian ended up kicking out of it, and Sabian ended up doing a snap mirror, a kick to the back to Joey Janela, and Janela ended up doing it back to Sabian, and the two end up on the apron. Janela ended up charging in. He ended up getting tripped. His head bounced off the steel steps, which looked really brutal. And Penelope Ford ends up coming up to Janela, and he then whips his head into the steps for a second time. So Dynamite went to commercial. Then when Dynamite came back from the commercial, we saw both Sabian and Janela were back in the ring. Kip Sabian ended up delivering a suplex to Janela. Crowd was behind Joey Janela here. Sabian was on the apron, and he does a springboard. Janela ends up sending him back out and hits a suicide dive. And he catches Penelope Ford again. Sabian ends up delivering a kick from the apron. And we had Janela ends up doing, multiple forearms to the face, to Sabian. So Penelope Ford is up on the apron. She ends up kissing Sabian. Janela ends up charging in. Kip Sabian moves out of the way, and Janela ends up hitting Penelope Ford off the floor. So because of that, Sabian end up taking control here, gaining advantage of the match. Sabian ends up rolling up Janela, and there you go. Kip Sabian end up winning the match. But overall, okay match. Wasn't great. Then, after that, we went backstage. And Alex Marvez was trying to talk with the Inner Circle. Jericho ends up taking the mic from Alex Marvez, kicks him out of here. Jericho ends up saying, Jericho wonders what kind of trash would spike a man in the eye. Jericho ended up saying that Moxley is going to pay for what he did. So Santana ends up taking the mic. Santana ends up saying that he's had a bad month. He says, but now he's going to bring out something that Moxley has never seen. So Santana ends up saying that next week he wants a match with Jon Moxley. And pretty much that was basically that. So we're probably going to see that next week, Santana versus Moxley. Which that is going to be a decent match. So we went backstage. After that, we went backstage, and Lexi tries to get a word with Hangman and Page. Mad Nick Jackson asks, Hangman and Page what his problem is, and that he should have made the tag. Nick ended up saying that if he keeps acting this way, if Hangman Adam Page keeps acting this way, he's going to lose those titles next week against SCU. And Matt says he knows what the problem is. And Matt ends up taking Hangman's cup of beer away. So Mad Nick is shown heading off. Adam Page ends up looking to think about that for a moment. Then it shows him bringing a pitcher of beer. And he drinks some of that beer. Basically, that was that. But, this is all, little tiny steps setting up for Hangman Adam Page's heel turn. So, just little steps here. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then it was announced that in 2 weeks, there is going to be a tag team battle royal. And it's announced for a title shot at Revolution. Then it was announced it's going to be Pac versus Kenny Omega in a 30-minute Iron Man match, which is going to be taking place on Dynamite in in 3 weeks, or it might be at Revolution. So then there was footage of Dustin Rhodes commenting on MJF giving Cody the 10 lashes. Dustin ended up saying that it would be very uncomfortable for him and the world to watch. Dustin ends up telling MJF that Cody is a lot tougher than MJF thinks, and says that Cody has got this. So, that was that. So then we had the main event. Cody Rhodes taking 10 lashes from MJF. And first off, MJF and Wardlow, they end up coming out to the ring. Cody then ended up coming out after them. And Cody ends up taking his shirt off. Cody ends up taking the mic before getting the 10 lashes. MJF ends up saying that his belt is too nice for this. MJF says that he wants to use Cody's belt. And, Cody ends up, doesn't, not liking that. But he ends up taking off his belt, handing it to MJF. So what these 10 lashes are that Cody has to get is MJF took Cody's belt, and he has to end up hitting Cody's back or his body with the belt and delivering 10 lashes to his body. So that was basically what MJF was doing. But this was very hard to watch. This was brutal, and it was emotional. But this was good. This was progressing their feud, more good. Since they're going to be facing each other at Revolution. So Cody ended up handing over his belt to MJF. There was a referee that was in there who was counting the lashes that MJF was delivering to Cody. So he ends up, hitting Cody over his shoulder with the belt, giving him the lashes. Then we see the Butcher, the Blade, Kip Sabian, the Bunny, aka Ali, Britt Baker, and Sammy Guevara. They're out on the stage to watch this. MJF ends up lashing Cody again. And Cody ends up getting in MJF's face. MJF ends up telling Cody to hit him. But Cody doesn't end up doing it. MJF then strikes Cody a third time. Cody ends up going down to the mat. And, right at this moment, I'm like cringing because of the lashes that Cody's been, taking. And I gotta say, I have mad respect for Cody for taking all these lashes from MJF. Imagine the pain that, Cody was going through. So out came Arn Anderson. Arn Anderson came out, encouraged Cody to get up. MJF is shown yelling at Arn Anderson, saying, "You can't help him, old man." So then MJF ends up delivering a fourth shot to Cody's arm with the lashes. Cody goes back down, gets back up again, ends up taking another one. So MJF ends up hitting a fifth one in the middle of Cody's back. So MJF is then barking at Cody for him to quit, for Cody to quit. So now Dustin Rhodes comes down to the ring. He gets inside the ring and is trying to say something to MJF. Wardlow ends up getting in the way. Dustin ends up telling MJF that he'll take the other 5. Dustin, taking a bullet, trying to take a bullet for, his brother. So MJF ends up saying, that's not how this works. It has to be Cody. So MJF ends up telling Dustin to get out and watch, like everybody else. So then we see the 6th and 7th lashes. They were quick ones that MJF did to Cody. Cody ends up falling down to the mat, to the canvas. Dustin cheers on Cody. And then we get the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick, come out. They head out to the ring. MJF still barking at Cody to quit. And the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick, encourage Cody a bit. Cody ends up rolling out of the ring. And Cody ends up, gearing back up for the next shot. MJF ends up hitting another one right in the middle, right in the middle of the ring. And he's just yelling at Cody. He yelled at Cody and said, "Stay down, bitch." And MJF was just yelling that at Cody. Cody ends up signaling that he has two more lashes. He gets up, he gives he flips off MJF, and Wardlow then asks MJF to do the 9th shot. And MJF ends up handing over the belt to Wardlow. Wardlow then ends up hitting Cody. And with Wardlow hitting Cody, it was the hardest shot that Cody took out of all these lashes. So, and still when I was watching this, I was just cringing because this was hard to watch. But and then we see Brandy Rhodes, Cody's wife, walks out. She's not with the Nightmare Collective. So she ends up coming out, ends up holding Cody's hand. Cody ends up saying that he has one more. And Cody ends up kissing Brandy's hand. Cody was shown tearing up. Stands up for the final shot, the last lashes shot. And the last shot, MJF ends up hitting Cody in the chest. So MJF looked pissed that Cody made it through all 10 of these lashes. So you had the supporters for Cody get in the ring to help him. MJF then kicks Cody, and MJF and Wardlow run out of the ring through the crowd. The AEW roster was running out to the ring, and so MJF and Wardlow were showing the crowd, and it looked like a fan attacked MJF. So, because the camera cut away to that quickly, and then it cut back, and we saw MJF and Wardlow and one of the security guys throwing punches at this fan, held down this fan. And pretty much that was basically how Dynamite went off the air. But it was really brutal seeing this. It was very emotional, very hard to watch. Some of the lashes from MJF that he did to Cody, were very brutal. And, I have respect for Cody for taking 10 of these shots, these lashes from MJF. And it's shown his back was all red from, the shots. His back was like beet red. I mean, you could see, the shots, from the belt, that MJF was delivering to Cody. But I really thought this was, good, and it progresses, their feud even more. So this is going to be very good to see Cody versus MJF at Revolution. And of course, don't forget, Cody still has that steel cage match with Wardlow coming up when Dynamite goes to Atlanta, Georgia. So we still have to see that. So it's going to be Wardlow's first in-ring match in AEW. But overall, Dynamite tonight was a decent show. Wasn't great or perfect by any means, though. But anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's AEW Dynamite. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this video and this review. And definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And the next video will be a movie review of Birds of Prey, which I am checking out the movie tomorrow night. So there's going to be a movie review on that. Really looking forward to the film. That's it for this video. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.